committees. Step 3, water it down until it looks exactly like the old idea. Step 4, announce it as a groundbreaking government reform. So tell me if that resonates. I'm Sanjan Sabharwal. I head up the Policy Design and Capability Unit in the Department for Education, which is home to two teams.
Which still exists in the UK.
Yes, the Department for Education. Yes, we still have one. Thank you. The Department for Education has a lab in it called EPIC, which is the Education Policy Innovation Center. And we also have a little team, the Policy Profession team, which is responsible for capability building and learning in the Department for Education, linked to a kind of cross-government policy profession unit. And so we take kind of skills and capabilities very seriously there, but we also trying to experiment with design thinking, systems thinking, user research in a policy context, and are trying to do mission-orientated work as well. So that's what we do. That's what I've been doing for the last year, and before that was working in Policy Lab UK for 7 years. But it's not about me today. I'm going to be asking the questions. So we've got a fantastic panel. Sandra Sarov, the Deputy Secretary General in the Economy and Innovation Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communication from Estonia. So welcome.
Thank you.
Go-Wei Boon, the Chief Executive of Government Technology Agency in Singapore. Chris Webber, Deputy Director of the Open Innovation Team in the UK Government. And Edward Pikett, Chief Digital Officer for Red Rock Consulting. So welcome, panel. And I wanted to kick off the conversation with a question, which is fairly linked to the title. How are you involved in creating a safe space for government to experiment? From your perspectives, please do share exciting examples, because it's post-lunch. Sandra, over to you first.
Yes. So for government to experiment or for companies to experiment together with the government. Can I talk about both?
Yes.
Yes. Welcome from my side as well. As introduced, I'm Sandra. Today, AKA as the cyborg. I feel like the big glasses and the chunky thing. But Estonia is more or less known to be an innovative country, right? I mean, we're happy with the statistics. With the statistics, we say Estonia always wins. Per capita, Estonia always wins. And we do have the most startups per capita in Europe, the second most unicorns per capita in the world. Do you know what's number 1? Which has the most unicorns per capita?
Is it the USA?
No, of course not. It's Israel. In any case, so we do like to think that we have created a safe space for experimenting. And just a couple of months ago, I managed to post on Twitter that there was a self-driving bus which was pretending to be a school bus. So it was operating near where I live. And so I took a picture in the morning, and then I posted on X, and I said, remember the times when our parents used to tell us that they needed to hike like 5 miles to school every morning, and look now, our kids are taken to school with a self-driving bus. But I mean, I think the whole idea is that in Estonia, we like to say that innovation comes first, and then the regulation must follow as well. Because in general, in Europe, I think the tendency is vice versa, that we regulate first, and then we see whether innovation can happen or not. I mean, the AI Act of the European Commission came out before anyone even knew what generative or ChatGPT models, different types of generative AI models are, right? So in this sense, currently, we're just in the process of passing an experimentation legislation. So if you want to test a new technology, whether we've tested self-driving vehicles, drones, self-service pharmacies, if you want to test a new technology, if the legislation doesn't enable to do it yet, so you have to do a risk assessment, you have to get a permit, but then you can test in real environment. You can test those new services, and then later on, if needed, we're going to change the legislation. So these are a few things we're working on right now. I'm happy to talk about them in details further later.
That's amazing. So the safe space is actually just the entire country.
Estonia
yeah,
is the
that
safe
is the safe space.
Yeah.
Go to Estonia if you want to try something new. Brilliant. Go-Wei Boon, what's your take on the question?
Yeah. Thanks for having me here. Just thought maybe give a short introduction about what GovTech does. Government Technology Agency in Singapore, actually we are in charge of accelerating the digital transformation for the whole of government. How we do it is that we have our teams in the government agencies that help in the digital transformation. They are the ones that are in charge of the IT, develop the products, work with the vendors to develop digital services for the government. That's one. Government Technology Agency itself also develop products. We have a team of about close to 1,000 people developing digital products for the whole of Singapore. These could be products like our digital identity, it could be our data products, or it could be a workflow product that all the agencies use. The third thing that we do is to help in the digital productivity of all public officers. So we provide them the laptops, provide them the productivity tools so that they can be effective in what they do. If they are effective, then the government is effective. How we try to enable innovation for the government agencies, we try to organize events. We think that by themselves, they will always get caught up in the day-to-day activities and not always thinking about innovation. So what we do is that actually we do organize events for them. For example, during the time when OpenAI and ChatGPT became very popular, we wanted to encourage people to think of use cases to use AI. And what we did was that because it's not natural to them, we bring them all in and by partnering in the industry, bring the engineers in, get them think of use cases and develop prototypes over a 2 weeks period. And then so that they can think about what are the use cases and then use AI to enable them. That was pretty good because some of these prototypes leads to products that could be used. That was like across the whole of government. Within Government Technology Agency itself, we hold hackathons. We just recently concluded one where we had a organization-wide hackathon that involved about 600 people. And it was not easy to get 600 people to want to do this by themselves. In our first call for them to do the hackathon, there was only about 60 people. And the reason they give that not many people are participating is because, no, I got deadlines to meet. If I participate in this hackathon, then I won't be able to meet the deadlines. And therefore, it's for the leadership to tell them that I will allow you to delay your deadlines so that you can participate in the hackathon, because we thought that's important. In terms of how we try to structure in the innovation, we think of it in 3 ways, which is system, structure, and skills. The system for them to be able to do innovation, creating the Slack for them, organizing hackathons for them so that you can bring the teams of people together so that they can innovate, think of use cases, and try to develop prototypes. A structure for them, we are encouraging all the agency teams to have a small unit that does discovery of problems and develop prototypes. Because without creating the Slack, I think it's hard for people to start to think about problems to solve and innovating on them. So creating that Slack for them, creating the structure for them to be able to innovate is important. And thirdly is the skills. You can have good ideas, but without the people with the skills, I think it's very difficult to develop prototypes. So we often have people with ideas, but who is the engineer that's going to develop them? You need the engineers to come in and work together as well. So helping them develop the skills so that they can innovate is useful. So that's what we do for innovation in Singapore.
Fantastic. So a multi-level approach to enabling innovation in Singapore. Right. And I think that I love that idea of slowing down almost. You need to slow down, create the slack in the system. Chris, Open Innovation Team, tell us more about how that enables innovation.
Sure thing. So Open Innovation Team is a cross-government unit that works with experts, especially academics, to help generate analysis and ideas for policy. How do we create the space for innovation, specifically in the civil service? I'd say there are 3 things. We try and make it cheap or free. We collaborate a lot, and we operate like a business, and we try and set up other business-like approaches to innovation. So by making it cheap or free, take each of those things in turn. When I first set up the team, I pitched it to the Cabinet Secretary at the time, Jeremy Hayward. He said, that sounds like a great idea, but we haven't got any money, so over to you. I partnered with universities and others for a little while to try and pilot the idea, and then over time convert it into a cost recovery unit that operates like a business inside government and gives us the freedom and flexibility to experiment with new ideas. So making it cheap or free gives us a lot of freedom to experiment, and we use that. Collaboration, I mentioned we collaborate a lot with our university partners on all sorts of ideas in terms of the operation of our core business, but also in terms of experimenting with AI adoption or systems thinking services or new evaluation services that we're adopting. We collaborate a lot with academics and other externals, and also colleagues in government. And then operating like a business, one of our kind of core principles is that everything we do needs to eventually operate on a kind of financially sustainable cost recovery basis. So we are very entrepreneurial. We'll spot ideas to introduce new cost recovery teams in government, and we'll pilot them, and hopefully they'll be successful. So something we've been doing recently, we've done it ourselves in the Open Innovation team, but we're also incubating a new cross-government evaluation service. We're thinking about trying to host from another government department a team that wants to create a cross-government service on systems thinking. And we're experimenting with all sorts of other technology and non-technology related service ideas that we want to develop into sustainable businesses that operate inside the civil service. So those are the kind of some examples and the kind of principles that we operate under.
Fantastic. So actually, you've almost piloted within government a new service and a kind of offering, and you're continuing to do so. But then maybe we can also come on to how you're supporting other teams to almost experiment with some policy making or thinking as well. So maybe we can come back to that. So Ed, what's your take on enabling innovation or experimentation in government?
Afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. So I guess I'm coming at this from a bit of a mixed angle. I spent 15 years as a civil servant, and I've spent 5 years as a consultant, for the want of a better word. So I'm sort of 3/4 government. The first thing here is that I'd say that consultancies like mine don't have all of the answers. And a lot of the work that's been done in government over the last 5 years has been absolutely exceptional in moving the debate forward around safe spaces, around culture, around ethics in AI and innovation, far more than the private sector has done. So actually, I think in many ways, a lot of the time we find that it's learning to build on the work that's already happened within the public sector and helping to enable that. And I think that safe space it's an interesting way of looking at it, because in many ways, you want that safe space. You want a place that has clear goals, clear guidelines, much like running a retrospective in any kind of delivery space. You want everyone to understand that they have a voice. You want empathy. You want all of the culture that enables a sort of anti-hostile environment. But at the same time, within innovation, you've got to have some teeth. You've got to have some edge within it. You've got to have a drive and a force and an ambition to disrupt and to be challenging that status quo. And that's why I think in government and consultancies can come together, because often it's very difficult for officials. Certainly I found it when I was in government. It's very difficult to challenge a narrative that might be peddling an agenda that may not be the right one at that particular moment, or it might be so embedded or so forceful within a particular organization that going against that flow can feel quite a threatening position to take. So I think relying on partners to be that voice of disruption can be a really positive thing for organizations like mine. I also think safe space operates in a financial sense. As a taxpayer, I don't necessarily want my government pouring good money after bad ideas. I think failing fast, we've talked about it a lot over the course of the last couple of days. That's great. But at the same time, knowing when to say no and move on and try something different is important. And I think you can rely on organizations that are here today, lots of very, very talented organizations with talented people, to perhaps take on more of that risk, more of that financial risk and that financial burden of piloting and challenging new ideas. So an example.
Good idea is always to experiment with someone else's money, then
Absolutely.
you don't feel the pressure.
And I think an example would be, so I'm also a trustee for Citizens Advice. The incubator for AI worked with Citizens Advice on a content model to help them triage people coming into looking for advice. I mean, a kind of plethora of content that was unnavigable, not hierarchy, no taxonomy, nobody could find what they were looking for. And they piloted a concept. Now, that concept can be used in one Citizen Advice place up in Manchester, and I think there's a second one in play. Well, as someone with a consultancy and a trustee, I can then take that model, that AI, and we can volunteer in our own time to then ingratiate that within a Citizen Advice in London, in Lewisham, for example, where I'm a trustee. And we can help with our spare time I guess, as a sort of social value agenda, we can then push that into a real existence within an organization. And then we can use that experience and that case study to build it back into government and build those learnings. So you get this really great partnership between government, private sector, third sector, coming together against a common need, delivering against a common problem without wasting or without putting taxpayers' money at risk. And if you can get that right, then I think we're in a really great place about how we enable innovation to happen across public and private sector.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So was anything on the panel, would you want to respond to anything anyone else said, or should I move on to the next question?
Well, I was the only one who spoke for 2.5 minutes, so I feel like I couldn't say anything that I wanted to say, but you can move on to the next question. I will just use more time then.
Yes, you will. Yes. Okay, great. So from a leadership, I guess, perspective, because we talked about, our different positions in the system, if you like, but from a leadership perspective, I mean, what do you do to allow others to take risks within your own context?
You have to give the people the responsibility, right? If you say it's a safe space to innovate and yet you micromanage, you control everything, then it's actually not a safe space to innovate. If people fear to fail, then it's not a safe space, right? So I can openly say, I don't know if my colleague, the former government CIO of Estonia is here. He was somewhere around. So what Estonia normally does with the innovation in the public sector is, if it works somewhere else, we're not afraid to copy-paste the system. So Estonia's ID card, which is the absolute central cornerstone of Estonia's digital success, we copy-pasted it from Finland, with the exception that we made it work. Because in Finland it wasn't a mandatory document, so we simply made it mandatory in Estonia, and now the uptake is 99.9% or something. However, a couple of years back we started testing with the mobile version, or like not a governmental wallet per se, but a governmental app, and we failed, and it was okay. I mean, of course, you get publicly, what's the nice word? People are not pleased when public sector innovates, right? But then you have to say, okay, we wanted to do A, B, and C. We realized that A and B can be done, C couldn't have been done, and so forth. So you have to live up to your mistakes. You have to own them, right? And then you cannot say that, oh, this line worker is the one who was at fault. We're going to fire them for this, You have to create this open space where people say that I tested, I failed, and this is not the way to go. And if it becomes a norm in the public sector as well, like in Estonia, we said, we tried with this app, it didn't work the way we wanted it to. Now we're moving on. Now we have launched a new app. It works. People are using it. So if you normalize also failing in the public sector, and if you make sure that in your team people know it as well, then it's fine. But what's crucial for me is always you have to know what's the end goal. So in my team, we're building sort of like a central one point of contact for all the business services that you use in interaction with the government. So for background, in Estonia, you can open up a company in 15 minutes and 33 seconds. It's a world record. It was set here in the UK, so it would have been faster, but there were problems with internet connection. But otherwise, you can do it fast, and anything in interaction with the government as a company you can do online. Also, as individuals, we now digitalized divorce 1 year ago, so now you can do anything, and interaction with the government also digitally. We digitalized marriage first, so we were hoping that the shy Estonian men will propose more, but this hasn't happened. So, so in any case, so my team is building the central point of contact for businesses, and we have the freedom. They can experiment what type of services in which order they bring there, but they always have to cooperate with the private sector. Because us as government, if we're building services, we are building them for individuals, either the citizens or the private sector, so they need to be on board with it. We need to get their feedback, we need to know what do they want out of it. So it's safe space to innovate, but you need to talk to your end user. And you need to always have the eye on the goal, what we want to achieve, right? So other than that, you're free to do whatever you want, but please make sure that the end user is happy.
That's amazing. So you need that clear outcome. You need to build trust.
Clear objective.
Yes. Trust seems to be a really key thing. I mean, putting automated buses with children on, that requires a lot of public trust.
Yes. there's a lot of trust. I mean, and I can talk endlessly, but one of the key things that we've done in Estonia is we say that citizens own their own data and businesses own their own data. So in this sense, if someone accesses my data, so if a medical doctor looks at my medical documents, it always leaves a trace behind. And we use a system such as Data Tracker. I can go and I can see who checked my data. So this way, the citizens feel empowered that, oh, I gave you the right to access my data, not that someone has interfered with your data, right? So yes, this trust is very, very high.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Go, what about you in terms of that leadership aspect of innovation and experimentation?
Yeah, I'll agree that having very clear outcomes as the KPIs, I think is quite important so that people know what they are aiming towards. Again, we try to do it in a structured way. We have what we call a POC, POV, and scale, which is a proof of concept, proof of value, and scale. And you can fail in any of these steps, right? We want people to experiment. That's why we organize the hackathons where people can come together and experiment. And where they get together to prove a concept. If they can't prove the concept, it's widely accepted that I failed, and that's fine, and just move on to the next one. Or if you have proven a concept, the next thing is to prove that actually it's of value to a particular organization. And if the organization agrees that this is of value, then that's good. But even if you have proven the concept, but you haven't proven the value, then in a way you feel it's okay, you move on to the next one. But it doesn't stop there. Even if you prove the value, actually you have to make sure that it can be scaled to a larger group of users. And that's where you deliver the key outcomes. So by encouraging the more structured way of experimenting, I think we are telling people that you can fail. And many of the groups don't actually get to the scale stage. They fail at the POC or they fail at proof of value, but that's fine. That's widely accepted.
Yeah. Amazing. It's quite hard to also kind of say to your colleagues, I think I did something wrong here, right? So it's like there's something, having a framework actually it almost normalizes a bit of trial and error, which is really great. Yeah. Chris?
It's a hard challenge to support people in innovating. There's lots and lots of things to do. Some of the things that we do, we have a 5-year strategy in our team with various pillars, and innovation cuts across all those pillars. How can we develop new services that increase our impact? How can we diversify our customers? What kind of new services can we introduce to benefit our partners? All sorts of things. And making that strategy clear for the entire team, and making clear that we've all got a part to play in delivering that is one obvious, simple step to take. It sounds simple, actually quite hard. Another thing that's a classic trade-off balance to strike in the private sector as well is getting the balance right between exploitation and exploration. So in our team, the reason we have a lot of space to innovate is because it's built on a successful business that gives us the kind of the financial room for maneuver and the kind of the free time to spend developing a new AI adoption service or whatever it might be. And so if we take our eye off the ball and don't take good care of the core business, then we lose that incredible opportunity to innovate. So it's like trying to strike that balance between exploration and exploitation is always a difficult balance to strike, and something we keep a close eye on. The third thing I would say is absolutely standard, but actually also quite hard, is giving people autonomy when they do come up with an idea. It sounds very easy in principle to give people a lot of autonomy, but it's also, sometimes that can conflict with other values that you hold dear. I've had some stuff in our team recently about kind of how staff are treated, and it's difficult to strike a right balance in practice for that sort of thing. But trying to give people as much autonomy as you can, obviously, is a good thing. In practice, it can be more difficult than it sounds.
Yeah.
Can I follow up on that?
Please.
If you have a 5-year plan, how much do you allow people to deviate from the plan? Because if you set the goals for 5 years, can you say in 1 year that the goals weren't as they were supposed to be, or something new has come on the platter? How much innovation actually a 5-year plan allows you to do?
It's a very loose plan.
No problem.
We work in government, or certainly I am, hyper pragmatic. It'd be absurd to be anything other than that, I think. So there's kind of pillars around service innovation, customers, partners, and we have objectives around increasing our impact in those areas that we review on a quarterly basis. And at this stage of the year, you'll be thinking about, okay, do we actually need to revisit this all, completely? So it's the whole thing is under constant review, but at least everybody knows the general direction and is constantly being updated on what's happening. So actually engaging people in that plan in a serious way, you can kind of make a lot of effort to do that, but sometimes they just want to do their thing, focus on their little bit of the world, and that's fine as too. So kind of, I think one of the tricks maybe is spotting people when they get into a position in their career or they have an idea and they want to become innovators, not rather than pressing everybody to be an innovator all the time. That I think is a ridiculous thing to idea to have. But sometimes people kind of, for whatever reason, get into a position where they want to innovate, recognizing that and supporting it as much as you can when it comes up is one of the tricks that I'm trying to kind of master at the moment. It's hard.
It's enabling the willing as well as enabling everyone to do a little bit and change the mindset. Briefly, Ed, because I'm conscious we want to probably go to questions in about 4 or 5 minutes.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on kind of leadership in your perspective, but also thinking about, I guess, like the civil service, because you've been in both worlds?
Yeah, I mean, I think interesting 5-year plan. Civil servants, we all love the 5-year plan. I wrote a 5-year plan for my business when I joined, and my MD looked at me with a bizarre look of confusion. What is this? But I worked for a Japanese company before that, and they had a 20-year plan because that's how they think. They had a 20-year vision for where they wanted to get to within the company. Yeah. And Sandra, to your point, set the vision, empower the people, give them the tools to do it. Absolutely vital. Have the synthetic working.
A vision and a plan
areas.
are 2 different things, though. That's why I asked.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But no, I think for me, leadership, set the vision. We talked a lot about missions over the course of the last couple of days. It's absolutely vital. Stick to them. I think anyone who's a government official has been probably a bit tired over the last few years of oscillating programs, projects, policies. I think when it comes to innovation, knowing when to be innovative. Not everything needs everyone to be innovative in a particular place, and actually empowering people to do that. We talked a little bit before we got on stage. I remember being during COVID, and virtual working was rolled out in 2 weeks. And that was a moment of absolute necessity where it demanded risk in a period of ambiguity and uncertainty. It demanded swift action with no real authority that this was going to work, and people just had to dive in and make a call. Everyone had to go work from home, turn teams on to a degree, off they went. That would never happen in a normal working environment where within a 2-week period you just send people off into the unknown. It took a moment of absolute ambiguity. So I think as a leader, being bold, empowering people and trusting people to make decisions, but setting a framework for them to operate within, certainly with innovation. Tell them, be innovative to that problem, because that problem needs a new idea. It needs you to go and disrupt. This stuff, don't worry about that. We'll take the learnings from the big idea and apply them later. And if you can set that vision, I think you're probably in a pretty good place.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Ed. So the third area I was going to kind of tease out of you was around barriers. I'm sure that everyone in this room is probably thinking about what the barriers are as well. So rather than me ask that question, I wonder if there are some thoughts from the crowd that we can start to bring in. So hands up if you have a question. Bonus points if it's a bit around barriers, but it doesn't really matter too much. So we've got a gentleman in a kind of green coat over there, and I'm going to help Anna out because she's got 2 mics and she's one person running around the room. So maybe if we can pick people in the same sort of area. But gentleman in the coat.
Oh, hi, I'm Ed. I work for Department for Work and Pensions. I have quite a general question about the long-term impacts of AI. It looks like 8 million jobs are predicted to potentially be lost in the next 5 years due to AI. Worldwide, they're looking at 300 million. So it's going to be massively disruptive technology. And the biggest problem, too, is kind of the capitalist model is going to fail because traditionally, GDP has always been tied to human capital. All of a sudden, humans are not going to be as relevant with regards to GDP and productivity. So the question is, have any of you in your retrospective governments been looking at potential taxations of the massive transfer of wealth that will be going to AI companies in the near future? Because, yeah, there could be a lot of social upheaval once all these jobs are lost and we become kind of redundant in the service industry due to AI adoption. So
Thank you. It's a very it's a big
Doomsday
question. It's a big question. I mean, very happy to open up to the panel for a brief response, but I know it's quite a hard one for us to maybe give a view on. But yeah, I mean, quick thoughts.
Yeah, firstly, no one in the world has still figured out a business model for AI to make actual money. There is no use case for AI which makes money and gets rid of people. It doesn't exist right now. So if we're looking at AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, if it's going to be if it's going to happen, this is going to be a game changer. But then at this point, producing AI models doesn't generate money. It doesn't take away jobs. I mean, the same happened when Ford started doing what he was doing, or you know, with any new industrial movement, they said jobs are gonna be gone. But always people reskill, upskill, and maybe it's good if we don't work as much as we do. So AI is not a threat to human workforce at this point. But in any case, so regarding taxing new technologies or systems, I mean, I think we should. I mean, let's go back to energy, or I mean, any industrial movement. Basically, we probably had the same questions. I don't think we should solve this problem at this point. But since it was about taxation, I just want to say. Estonia has the most competitive tax environment
in
the
world?
OECD countries for 11 years in a row. What we do is we only tax companies if they take out dividends. As long as you reinvest, then we don't tax the companies. So it's 0% corporate tax on reinvested profits, which actually encourages companies to invest more into innovation and into people. So this is one way of looking at it, regardless of technologies that exist. If you keep reinvesting, if you invest also to people, it's profitable for the company to do so, and it actually is profitable for innovation.
Okay, that's an Estonian perspective on this. I think it's quite interesting. We've got a panel with different population sizes as well. This end maybe.
So it's a good point. So Estonia is only 1.3 million people, and you have to understand that we love our technology because technology makes us efficient. So that's why I don't see AI as a threat, because we see AI or any new technology as an enabler that helps Estonia, a small population, do things in a more efficient way, right?
Exactly, yeah. So does anyone else want to come in on this again briefly? If we've got more questions, that's good.
I can add to it. Singapore is not much bigger. It's about 6 million, or just a bit more. And we have the same issues. Actually, we are short of, the workforce is shrinking, we are short of labor. So AI actually is a welcome change for us because it enables productivity. It enables us to do more with the same number of people. The future, I feel, is uncertain. It's really hard to say whether there'll be more jobs gained or more jobs lost. I think there'll be a shift. Indeed, there'll definitely be a shift. And when we gain in productivity, when we are able to solve the problems, it enables more things to be done. Allow us to look at new issues and then needing more people to deal with some of these new issues. So it doesn't really stop there. When you solve a problem, it doesn't say, oh, problem solved, okay, then the job is done and we've got no more work. When you solve a problem, actually there are new problems to be solved, because you're always thinking of advancing to the next stage. And I feel that the conclusion might not necessarily be that jobs are lost, and therefore it's a problem. But definitely there'll be a shift in jobs, and we definitely need to reskill our people to be able to do the new things that needs to be done.
Thank you. I'm going to take another question from the crowd. So we've got 2 hands up over here, and one man in a blue jumper. So let's go to this one first. I know it's quite tricky to get there. Maybe go blue jumper first, and then we'll pick up these 2.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Matt. I'm from HMRC, where I run an innovation unit. I'd be really interested in the panel's views on how you make experimentation as cheap and easy as possible, because my experience is it can be quite hard to get the experiment happening. You have to expend a lot of innovative energy to navigate the systems, particularly in government. So by the time you get round to experimenting, you've already got a lot of sunk cost in that one idea. So you end up with a logic of picking winners, which isn't really innovation. So anything you can say about successful approaches for making experimentation as cheap and easy as possible?
Great question. So can we listen to the next question as well?
Sure.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Michelle from the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero. I also work on innovation. A really important part of our job is managing trade-offs and risks and thinking about all the things that might go wrong, but sometimes that can feel a little bit like we've thought about everything terrible and disastrous that might happen before we've thought about all the things that might go right. How do you manage trade-offs and risks in the context of trying to allow innovation to thrive and flourish?
Yeah, thank you very much. So let's take those two first, if that's okay. So is it the first one was around how do you make it cheaper and easier to innovate when there's a lot of sunk cost even going into something like a pilot? Chris?
Can we have a go? Yeah, sure. That's a great question. I don't think there are any magic answers to that sort of difficult challenge. I also think it's very context dependent. What kind of depends what kind of investments you're making. In my context, it's very easy to make it cheap and easy because we are able to experiment in a low-cost way. We're not changing huge systems all the time. You might be operating with HMRC in a much more different context, different context to that. So for a general audience, the main things I would say there are kind of, which I don't actually think we don't do enough of in the civil service, generally speaking, is use some of the basic management tools that are commonly used in the private sector to manage innovations, have an innovation funnel, think about a pipeline, have a portfolio approach that spreads your risk, recognize that a lot of the innovations are going to fail. It's a inherent part of the innovation process. I think it's beyond those kind of really high level bits of advice, it's quite difficult to say anything particularly useful for the individual case in your part of HMRC, because I think the response to making it cheap and easy is so context dependent. But one of my main responses would be, I think we can manage innovation processes more in a more sophisticated, more professional way, generally speaking, across the civil service by engaging with and understanding some of the general approaches to innovation management across the use elsewhere in the economy. I don't see as much of that as I would expect to happen. Maybe it's happening in pockets around the civil service, but not so much as far as I've seen.
Thank you, Chris. And final, I think we've got a minute or two, I think. So we'll wrap up with this one, which is that point around trade-offs. I've noticed this actually in the civil service. That's almost like a meme in the civil service. It's like, well, what are the trade-offs? That's almost the first thing you might ask as a civil servant or a policymaker.
I have a 10-second answer to this question.
Go. And then maybe.
Yes, don't add bureaucratic layers, because the most expensive resource is human and time. And if you add bureaucratic layers to innovation, this is where actually you lose the resources. So it's cheaper if you don't add too much bureaucracy.
Okay, that's a good answer. And Ed, any thoughts from you on this one around trade-offs?
I guess I'm just trade-offs and money. I'd worry about value, not money. I think innovation, I think it is more expensive. It's 18 times more expensive to develop a chip than it was 50 years ago. But I don't know about spreading risk, I must say. I'm not too sure about that. I think government departments inherently, through an anti-risk mentality, spread risk on lots of small innovations with the hope that one of them might bear fruit. I would rather be bold. I'd rather go in big on an innovation. I'd rather look at the multiple things that come off that and then invest on a secondary level in them. More like kind of wealth management or private equity funding, where you're constantly pursuing that excellence at every single stage. I think it bears more fruit. An example would be the High Speed 2. So obviously, huge amounts of money has gone into High Speed 2. They're one of the biggest landowners in the country. But I think more startups have come out of projects and innovations born out of the development of High Speed 2 than any other project over the last year or something like that. So although, it's sunk a load of cost, there's massive, massive potential in the innovations that have been born out of that. And I think getting money into them, getting the private sector to invest in them and them carrying the risk, not government, is the way forward.
And if you're bold, you fail faster, and then you also save money.
Well,
yeah.
So fantastic. That is the end of a very lively panel debate, if I don't say so myself. So a big thank you to Ed, Chris, Go, and Sandra for fantastic contributions, and thank you all for some brilliant questions. I'm sorry we didn't get around to all of them. And just, should we give our panel a round of applause? Now you're going to tell me we've got 10 minutes left, aren't you? And then I think in terms of things coming up, if you want to stay in here, it's Skills for Innovation in a few minutes, maybe. And if you want to go elsewhere, there's something on unlocking improvement and empowering government services with data elsewhere. So go and enjoy those sessions, but thank you all for coming.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do a little bit of cleaning in the room, and we'd like it if all delegates could leave the room, please. If you could leave the room and give us a few minutes, you can come back in shortly. Thank you.